This is Blocks to Flow, the space where learning, living, and leading return to alignment. Hosted by Kohila Sivas. Together we reconnect, restore, and rewire the missing link. Unlearn survival, relearn rhythm.
Welcome, Coach Toni. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here with you today.
Beautiful, beautiful. So on our conversation on the podcast, always we start off with a breathing technique. As we all know, we're always in the past, thinking about the past, or worried about the future, but we all forget to be here and now, right? Be here and now. So what is your favorite breathing exercise to bring you to be here and now?
I really like to do the relaxation breathing where you breathe in for 6, hold, and then breathe out slowly for 8.
Okay. How many do I have to hold? Just one count?
4. Is it 4? Hold
Okay.
4. So in for
Inhale
6,
for
hold
4.
for 4,
So
out
inhale
for 8.
for 6. Okay, inhale for 6, hold for 4, and exhale for 8.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Can you lead us?
Sure. I'm just going to count with my fingers, I guess. All right. So here we go. In. And then in. And one more in.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank
You
you.
need to remember to pause more often during the day and do that.
Yeah, we all forget, right? We all forget.
Mhm.
But it's so important. You feel even good, right? Doing that. I feel good. But the thing
Absolutely.
is, I was having a hard time moving my finger and breathing. That was new for me. I don't know if the viewers will have that too, but it was hard. Like I started thinking too much.
It's hard. You have to give some kind of signal to the person that you're doing with the count. And that's
Yeah.
one of the ones that I would use in
You had
class.
it right on it. You were very focused, but my brain was like, hold on a second. So if you can't do it like me, it's okay. Just take deep breath right? Inhale for 6. It's not about the counting, right? It's more about that inhale, deep inhale and hold.
Mhm.
So don't let it out right away. And then exhale slowly and every bit of the air out of it, your lungs, completely for 8. So you really feel the rest, right? The peace at the end of it.
I have a mental visualization that I like to do as well. I like to imagine that I'm breathing in really good air and I sort of see the color of bright sunny yellow. And then when I'm breathing out, I imagine that all of the negativity in my body is going out and it's sort of like a greasy, grayish black, that air is coming out. And so breathing in really good, beautiful light and then breathing out all of the negativity.
Yeah, I just did that. This feels very good too. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So today we're going to talk about blocks to flow. I want to ask you, growing up, what was one of the blocks you carried for so long?
I carried a block. I think that there was something wrong with me and that I had to hide my true self because my true self appeared odd to other people and it would get a negative reaction and often an odd interaction. So one of my earliest memories that brought some shame and some strangeness was I knew how to play chess when I was 5. And I can remember being introduced to people and having them say, oh, she knows how to play chess, and show them how you. I was going to set up a chessboard and someone was going to play with me, but it was never about set up the chessboard and almost as a spectacle. And so that's one of the first things that I learned how to hide. So I would set up this chessboard thinking I was going to play with someone, like the people who taught me to play, my family. And for everyone else, it was like a freak show. Oh my God, this little girl knows how to play chess, and they would never play with me. And so I can remember that's one of the first things that I decided to put behind, right? That's one of the first things that I decided to hide about myself because of the reaction that it got.
So you were, as you were growing up, you saw differences among other people and yourself. Even you did.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that made you decide that I'm just different. And then eventually something must be wrong with me.
I had a huge vocabulary at a really young age. I was interested in things, and there were conversations on the playground. That's not a word. What are you talking about? That didn't happen. That's not true. And so it was pretty clear that I had to learn to, I know now we would call it masking, where you learn to just pass as everybody else and don't show things as much.
Yeah. So when did you recognize that to be a block?
Not that long ago, actually. I knew from a very early age that my intelligence level was higher. I knew that I was what we would call now gifted, but I thought that made everything easier because, just even the word gifted, the assumption is, oh, well, you're gifted. Everything must be really easy. And things weren't easy. And so you feel like a fraud when you encounter difficulty. Things come easily to you. If you ever have to work for something, oh, that just must not be for me. And I didn't realize that the block was related to that lifetime of masking, right? I didn't realize that I'd been doing that for a really long time until I started looking into working with neurodiverse children and reading more about giftedness and going, oh my God, okay. So it's not all of these things that I thought were flaws of character were actually just the way my brain functions and not personal flaws or personal failing.
So a lot of people, let's talk about this because, gifted students are, viewed differently by rest of the people, right?
Oh, yes.
So many of us, I don't, but many people think that gifted students know it all and they're good at everything and they're just perfect. And I just kind of, you know what? I don't really even like them because they make me look dumb, right?
I think that
if I start comparing, that's what I would feel, right? I didn't know how to play chess at 5. I didn't know how to say the words.
Exactly. And even the word, to stand up and say that you are a gifted person, it's not a safe thing to say. You're seen as arrogant, or it comes with a lot of stereotypes and a lot of expectations. And I also think that most children that are gifted aren't identified as gifted. We rely on our education system mostly to recommend students for educational testing, which is where you would find out if they're gifted. And so if their parents aren't interested in getting them tested, they could go all the way to adulthood and never know. And it's suspected that most people that are gifted remain undiagnosed, and they're just everyday people who have this brain that works this way. And they're not even seen in the classroom. So often students that are gifted will show up to teachers as defiant, because when a teacher asks them to do something and they don't think it's a good idea, they'll say, well, why should I have to do that? And they'll argue with it, or they won't do it. I remember a gifted student, I had her on the first day of class, and I didn't know her. I didn't know she was gifted. And the first day of class, we had to go into the school, and it was a warm day. She insisted on putting on her coat and her hat and her mittens. And I said, no, we don't need to do that. We're just going from one door to the other door. We're just going to take a few steps outside. She refused to take her coat off. So immediately I'm trying first day of school. I'm trying to build routines. There's no one supposed to wear their coats inside the school. And here's a student that's going to war with me right away about her coat. And it took a long time to get her to take her coat off. And then I escorted the rest of the students into the school, and I turned around, and she had waited until everyone was out of the class, and she put her coat on and came into the school. For a teacher, that looks like defiance. It's what it looked like to me at the time, until I got to know her and her quirky sense of humor and her interest in things that other children weren't interested in, and realized that she was a gifted student, undiagnosed. But I could tell from the quirky sense of humor and the jokes that she made that were just well beyond her age. And so often they will present as defiant children. They'll present as unmotivated, because sometimes if they're not interested in something, they aren't interested in working on it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're very interested in their own thoughts. One of the students that I taught that had an IQ test, and it was so high, like very tiny percent, profoundly gifted. And she was a straight C student, and most of the time she would be daydreaming off into space. And because she was thinking about things, class was boring. And so teachers might have looked at that student and thought, oh, maybe that student has ADD, not paying attention. but it was a student who was profoundly gifted. Straight C's, very quiet, nice girl, not interested in what was going on in class. It was very mundane and boring to her.
So now that you are a Blocks to Flow coach, using the Readiness OS because we know that people are not on the acceleration, right? Everybody wants students and every one of us to perform, but we need to get to a state to perform, right? It's a state first.
Yes.
So before we get to that state, there's a readiness phase that we have to all go through that is very personal to each one of us. It's not a standardized thing. It's very personal to each one of us.
It is.
Because we're a living thing. We're made out of different systems, subsystems. All these systems must be in alignment and activated so that we can enter this flow state to perform and achieve. So growing up as a child who had differences, and you labeled yourself during this time, what you're saying is that I'm different. And then did you call yourself like I don't fit in, I'm stupid, or what did you started saying at that time?
I felt weird.
Yeah, you're a weird kid.
I felt weird, and I felt like other people didn't like me.
They don't get me. They don't like me.
They don't get me. I'm just weird. I'm a weird kid. I can't seem to figure out how to get along in this world. And even when I did, there was a time between elementary and junior high where I had a really close group of friends, and they were girls that were quite popular. And I remember as an adult going to visit one of them. I'd shown up to work in Jasper, and she was working there. I hadn't seen her in years, and at this time I was full on goth punk rock, and I had eyeliner up the side of my face and spiky hair and this black and white check jacket on, and she took one look at me and she said, "Oh, I'm not surprised." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, we always hung out with you just because you were weird and funny." And so there's moments like that come out, but it was just always feeling like an outsider, always feeling misunderstood, and I still feel like that as an adult a lot of times.
So it's keep going, right? It's keep going. So now as a Blocks to Flow coach, you understand how important it is to really, spend time in this readiness phase to, combat some of these things, because otherwise we carry them into our future, into our adulthood, and then we go into personal development, and then there also we start masking the symptoms with hacks and strategies. It's a never-ending cycle. So coming from that point of view now, how do you see yourself? Like from the Blocks to Flow point of view, how do you see yourself now?
I think that probably one of the first things that a student who is gifted is going to need for that readiness, we talk about emotional safety first, nervous system first, that sense that it's safe to be who they are. Yes. And I think that they don't feel safe in some situations. They're often bullied. I think that when we encounter something that is not what we expect, it might make our nervous system uncomfortable. And we respond to that person in a way like they're a threat because they've triggered that part of our nervous system that's triggered by threat, because they just don't give the expected answer, don't behave in the right way, say things in a different way. And so I think that in many cases they're bullied. And I do know that they are not recognized in their classrooms, and not by the other students and not by teachers very often. Teachers very often will pick students that have straight A's and think that they are the ones that should go for gifted testing, but those aren't necessarily the gifted kids. Those are kids that are very intelligent, but not to the same level that would qualify them as gifted. So I think primarily it's a sense of safety. And I think that I know that when I speak to another person who's gifted, we see each other right away. We see each other in the things that we're interested in, the way we speak, the amount of, a lot of very simple social cues are different. We don't interact in the same way as neurotypical people. Our brains are working different. Our social language is a little bit different. And so we recognize each other right away. And I think having someone that is like you to talk to when you're a younger person, to tell you that it is okay and help you understand that some of the things that are happening to you aren't because it's your fault. It's the way your brain is working. So I think first it's that sense of it's safe to be who you are. And second, to be appreciated for who you are. So to be seen as who you are, to know that it's safe to be that person, and to know that you're appreciated to be that person. Yes. And then I think from there's often gifted people will have an asynchronous development. And so you may have a student that is 5 years old and knows very, very high level mathematics, but is really lacking in social skills, or maybe really lacking in language skills. And so one of the things that happens is this asynchronous development. And so for each child, I think the next step would be to take a look and see, okay, where are things that need to be worked on? So is there some executive functioning? Is there a way that you can learn to self-regulate when you feel so incredibly frustrated? Because it's interesting, because with autistic children, they're very sensitive brains as well. And that's the same with a gifted brain. It's just a very, very sensitive brain. And where an autistic student might be really disturbed by the feel of their clothing, a gifted student will feel that way about something that's unjust or unfair. It's the same. It's extremely disturbing to witness that. And I know for me, it was color. I've always been really, really sensitive to color, and going into a space where the colors aren't right, or they clash, or they're too bright. That's always been one that affects me. So for those children, each one of them is individual. So once you get past that basic nervous system at the very root, then you would go up and move into the other parts of the system, looking at, what other people would call executive functioning, ability to get by. And then I think ultimately you want to get to that soul print so that they can see who they are as a gifted individual and what that means, truly what it means. I think they have an incredible amount to offer society, but can be very misunderstood. And I think from my own experience, I don't know how a person who's not gifted thinks. And I don't think a person who's not gifted can think how a gifted person thinks. And so sometimes when a gifted person is doing their best and trying to be helpful, and because their brains work very quickly, see patterns really quickly, and instead of going, from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, their brains are going out in a spider web in all kinds of possibilities, and very quickly being able to see connections and future possibilities and what's going to go wrong. And one thing that I've really come up against is people don't like that. They don't like you to point out everything that's wrong with what they were thinking of in 3 seconds. Right? So there's skills that can be taught when you understand that that's how your brain works, and it's a good thing in how your brain works, but it's not how everyone else's brain works, and how to exist with other people that have brains that work differently without all of the tension that can come when you don't have that awareness.
What if like, in our program, we don't place the label in front of the person? We know it exists, right? It gives us information, but it's the person I want to see, right? I want to see Toni.
Yes.
I want to see Emily, right? My Emily is the person behind this, not the label that goes in front of them. So that's why we say we don't look at any labels, because if I'm able to look at you, if I was when you were growing up, if I was a teacher, I would have looked at you as, what does Toni need in order to grow and be with others? Like, if we all start looking from that perspective first, and the labels can come later when you're accelerating. I can give you strategies, and because you are faster than some other people might think, right? So there's this level that we have to match up to you, because otherwise you'll quickly get bored. So we can add strategies and hacks and tips on top of when you're in acceleration. But before acceleration, I really need to know who you are, though. Right?
Absolutely. And I expect that, even though I say that I'm a coach that will work with gifted children, I suspect that most of the children that I work with will not come with a diagnosis. And they may even come with a different diagnosis. They may come with a different label, because often it looks like ADHD, or it looks like autism, or it looks, and a lot of the things that students need before they get to that acceleration point, they're the same, regardless of what the label is.
Yeah, because you grew up without knowing you're gifted. You just recognized that later, right?
I knew I was. I always knew I was.
So
it was something my parents.
Like, did you get it labeled? Like, always?
I did know, but I had the same stereotypes as everyone else. I thought the same thing about gifted people as everyone else. I thought there's Albert Einstein, and everything's going to be easy, and you're going to make some great contribution to the world or make some great discovery. And that's not it at all. And I think a lot of gifted people grow up feeling like they failed, and their parents might not understand that either. So, but I think with all of the students, I'm seeing so many children that come with the same issues, right? Their nervous system is overwhelmed. They're in an environment that puts them into a state where they feel threatened. They feel like they're in survival. And it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. They have all the same need. So you're very right. The diagnosis doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It does matter in the way we can understand a little bit at the strategy level, but it doesn't matter at the beginning stages of the readiness stage. No. It doesn't matter. It actually, what it does is it actually blinds everyone who's working with that person, because we're not seeing the soul of that person,
Exactly. It's a stereotype.
Yeah.
The labels create stereotypes. I've been having, in the neurodivergent community, there's a controversy about whether gifted and autism and ADHD are all in the same neurodiverse category. And some people don't put gifted in there because gifted is seen as a present. It's a good thing. And other neurodiversities is seen as a disability or a limitation. And I don't think any of them are gifts or limitations. I think it's just, it's a brain that's working differently. And the disability happens when you encounter an environment that's not set up for that type of brain. And
it's appreciation of the differences, right? It's appreciation of the differences always, right? It's just
exactly.
It's
just different. To me, it's no different.
Wrong. It's just different.
It's no different if you're a redhead and sunburns very easily when you go in the sun, or if you're darker skinned and you don't sunburn easily at all because you have more melanin in your skin. It's just, it's diversity. And there's diversity in the way the mind works, and as well as everything else. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that a lot of gifted children have a lot to offer the world, and it's not easy for them to get there with some of the ways that their brain works.
And I think it goes back to the way our school system was knowingly or unknowingly set up, right? Because they thought at the time of setting it up that all humans will come into this classroom all ready to go in the state to learn. So we can just get them ready to be productive workers.
Yes. Yes, it's not. So we are not widgets. We're all individuals.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
we have our systems and system. Well, I'm a system. I'm a living system. You're a living system.
That's right.
I can't just be, trained to operate like a machine.
And our classrooms are set up sometimes to work like machines where, there's an expectation not only that everyone will arrive at school ready to learn, but that everyone can sit under fluorescent lights all day in a hard chair without a movement break for an hour or so. A lot of students, that's overwhelming.
Some can do it. Yeah, great. Some can do it, but not 90% of them can't. Some might just look like they're sitting, but they're not even in the building. Like I used to be one of those students. I never created any disaster in the classroom, but my body was just sitting there physically, but my brain was out in the world, over there somewhere doing some kind of wandering around, right? I was never focused in the classroom.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that the number of students that are really having difficulty being in school, the number of students that cannot go to school, the number of students that are having meltdowns in school, teachers are saying it's really increasing.
Oh, yes.
And it's interesting to me because we notice the students whose response to survival is fight or flight. Yes. If they argue with us, if they talk back, if they run away, they're going to get noticed. But if their response is to freeze, or if their response is to fawn and become the teacher's pet and do everything, we don't think there's anything wrong. We don't notice that. But I wonder how many children are in classrooms with that reaction to stress. And no one thinks of it, right? We notice the ones that cause a disturbance.
I would say
if you're not causing a disturbance, you're okay.
I would say nowadays 1/3. Right, 1/3 could be falling in that category. The 1/3 would be the extreme behaviors that are happening, and the other, trying to flee away, and the other is trying to fight back, and the other ones are just quiet and taking it, but they're still suffering too, right? They're still suffering.
They are, and we don't know it. It was really shocking when I started to have daily morning meetings in my classroom where we would spend 30 to 40 minutes every morning just sort of doing a check-in, seeing how everybody was, talking about things that had come up the previous day. And into the school year, they would start to share very personal things. They would open up and share things. And it shocked me how many students are not feeling okay during the school day. It's astounding that they're able to sit and learn and behave with the feelings that they're carrying around with them. Some of them, it's astounding.
We can even imagine, right? Most of our students now have phone, right? If they're in elementary above, they have phones. Imagine you getting a text that right now, if I get a text on my phone, someone says something rude or someone is upset, what will happen to my state of learning? It's gone.
Yeah,
it's gone.
It's
gone.
Yeah, it's completely gone.
I'm triggered, or I'm now alert with something else that I did not have in my mind. So if you think about it, these kids who are middle school and older definitely has a phone, majority of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that they're constantly on it, they're being triggered by all of the external noises that are happening around them, and some of them are very brutal, right? Some of them are
They are.
bullying, and some of them are very, very brutal to each other, because it's so easy to put whatever we want on the screen. We wouldn't have said those things in person before, right? In our times.
Yes.
We never had cell phones, so we'd have to tell somebody something really mean, and that takes another level, right? But now put it on a screen. That's why even adults, if you look at on social media, how mean they are to each other.
Yeah.
Right?
We're not being a very good example for children, are we?
Yeah, but some of the posts and some of the comments, some people are really, really mean to each other, but that's because they wouldn't do that in person. But somehow on screen, we're able to do it because there's a disconnect between screen and the real person being there, and seeing the real person really upset. You would never say that, but we don't really see the person upset because there's no person there. There's no support. So I think that's happening a lot with our students, in the classroom too, right? So there is a lot of kids who are anxious. Anxiety is it's just so much in the classroom. Even if I'm a student who doesn't have anxiety, I can feel the anxiety of others around me, right? Because it's an energy.
What really shocked me last year with children that are 9 and 10 years old was a belief that they had that if they weren't perfect, no one was going to love them. Mm-hmm. And this is the impact of seeing everyone on social media filtered and perfect. Beauty filters are everywhere. And they look at themselves and think, I don't look like that.
Yes.
They know people are using filters, and they know they're using beauty filters.
Yes.
But yet they had this deep-seated feeling that if they weren't perfect, they were unlovable, and they were never going to be perfect. Absolutely. It's crazy.
Yes, absolutely. Now, our work as a holistic neurogrowth success coaches using the Blocks to Flow method is to really give everyone what's missing in our education system, in the personal development realm. What's missing is the readiness, right? If we don't know how to get this soul to be ready to flow, there's no performance. If we are performing, at that point, we're pressuring to perform. And pressuring to perform is not sustainable.
And if you're not ready to perform and you're being pressured to perform, that's creating more stress, which makes you less ready to perform. And it can spiral down. Yeah,
it's a vicious cycle, right? And we've been in it. As teachers, we've been in it. As student, I've been in it, and you've been at it as well, right? And especially with you calling, early on in your life, I'm different. I don't seem like I belong with anybody. That adds even further. So how many of our students are living this right now, holding on to even a label of already gifted, if they received it or not, they're living with that as well, right? So what is your advice for parents who are listening to us? Like, if they do see that their child is different, what's the first step? Get the label?
No. The amount of time that it takes to get a label for a child. There's a few things, like labels will help students get funding. They'll get funding. Maybe with that funding, it will be enough to get them some special help at a school. But unless there's a profound difference, it's very difficult to get any help at school. And also the length of time that it takes. The longer you wait, as I said, that downward spiral, this compounds over time. And something that starts as a simple, I don't feel like I belong in kindergarten, and I don't feel like my kindergarten teacher likes me very much, because that feeling can turn into very, very deeply carved patterns in a person's brain, messages that they will carry for the rest of their life. It can also start increasing the tension, increasing what might be discomfort, can turn into explosions in the classroom. And then that can lead to behavior problems and missing class, being suspended. It can lead to families. I see a lot of families who they don't know what to do. They've got a diagnosis, but they're going to quit my job, and I'm going to sell the house, and we're going to downsize, and I'm going to homeschool because things aren't good. They've let it go for so long. I think it's really important when you see that to get help sooner than later, to talk to the school, to talk to family and friends. If you can find a coach in your area that can help you, if there's someone at the school that can help. I think it's really important to start early, because huge changes can be made without having to make such a drastic decision to, my child is overwhelmed at school, now I have to homeschool and change my whole life to do that. And it can start to affect families and relationships as well. So my advice would be, don't worry about a label. It doesn't matter. It's interesting when you look at different neurodiversities, if you look at characteristics and struggles of gifted people and people with autism and people with ADHD, there's a lot of overlap. So don't worry about the label. could be anything. Find someone to help with what's causing the problem. Find someone that can help you uncover what's underneath the meltdown, what's underneath the explosion, what's underneath the depression, not wanting to go to school. Find someone who can help you gently uncover that. And then whatever it is, slowly work on removing that for your child. And then it won't be an issue to go to school. You won't have to sell your house.
Yeah.
But I think we wait too long.
Wait too long. Go ahead.
And sometimes a diagnosis at school, I've seen this many, many times, and in life. Sometimes a diagnosis, yes, it's something that should get you help, but it can also be something that's an excuse for why things aren't working. So people can lower their expectations if a student has autism. Oh, well, they have autism, or they have ADHD, so it's okay that they only got C's on their report card. The stereotypes that come with it can cause a child to be treated differently and have lower expectations rather than help.
All parents, like a lot of parents I work with as well, think that getting the label or getting some sort of remedy on top of all of the spirals that are happening is the end of everything. And that's, I found a relief. Now I feel relief, but it's not really. After you get the label, it's the beginning. Even if you think about it, it's like really the beginning of anything, because you still have to figure out how your child's going to work. No matter, the label's not going to tell you what the child's going to be like, because they're still behind that label is a real person.
That's right.
That has a soul that wants to express. Right now it's suppressed, or there's something going on that's not allowing them to express yet. So until we remove the label, we can't really look at the person. We have the filter in front of it. I can't look through that filter at a person. I need to look at the person themselves.
That's right. And a label doesn't describe a person. A person is a whole person. And every student that I've met that has autism is different. Every student that I've met that's gifted is different.
Exactly.
I haven't met I don't know every gifted person. I've met a few.
Well, they're different. I've met few. They're different.
And so the diagnosis can give ideas of how you might help, but that might not be what that child needs for help.
So label is not, when you get a label, don't think of it, what we are saying is don't think of it as a relief. Think of it as, now I have a starting point to be more curious about this situation.
Yes.
Here is someone saying this is what my child is, but who is my child? That question still remains to be answered, right? Who is this child? What is this child trying to express? And then, as you said, what we think is a deficit in autism and ADHD, we think of it as something wrong, and in gifted, it's something not wrong. But I love that when you said that it's not that none of it is wrong. They just do things differently. Like, why can't we look at it as what is their way of thinking?
Yes. And what do they need to be comfortable and feel safe and feel regulated?
To learn.
It might just be a small change in the environment.
Yeah. To learn.
Maybe
what do they need? What do they need? It's just curiosity question. Again, curious, right? I'm just curious. What do you need? From what you have, what do you need? Not let me try to fit you into something we've already built.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting to me too, what I'm seeing now that it seems new to me, is parents who have one diagnosis, but then that's not enough. Then they want, because their child doesn't fit that exact diagnosis that they've been given, there's something else happening. So then they're looking for another diagnosis and another diagnosis and another diagnosis.
Because they want relief, right? All parents want is a relief. But
but the diagnosis doesn't bring the relief, right? You have to work with the child. You have to work with the child to overcome what's holding them back. And the diagnosis just says, okay, well, this is what's holding them back. Maybe this whole range of things that could be happening, something in here might be difficult. It's good to get funding. It does provide some funding, and it can provide access to, in Canada, it provides access to tax dollars for coaches like us, for example.
Yes.
But I don't know if the length of time that you spend is worth it. I think it would be far better to do something first and then proceed with the diagnosis if necessary.
Yes. And as a Blocks to Flow coach yourself now, you have a greater tool sets, and also this Readiness OS, right? How we take everyone from the awareness, alignment to activation to really look at it through the system level, right? Our subsystem level, to unblock, so that when we get to acceleration, if there is a label, you're able to help them implement some strategies that might work with somebody with autism or ADHD. But before that, there's no point in implementing any of those strategies or tips or hacks because we haven't identified what the soul needs yet, the person needs
That's right.
yet. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I'm excited. I'm excited for what you do because
I am too.
You lived it.
I'm still living it.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
still living it, but you yourself also are, past the point of, calling yourself anything, right? But looking at it as how my system needs to be and ready to perform.
That's right.
Yeah. So we all get to that. I'm also learning to be, how do I get my systems ready so that I can be in the performance state, which if I want to. If I don't, I don't have to. It's not it's not a forced thing, right? It's always like, what do we need in order to learn, live, and lead? That's the question. Yes.
For me, it's very much like ADHD. I will become so interested in something, I will forget everything else that I was supposed to do that day, and I will be reading and researching and learning everything I can about an octopus because I found it interesting that morning.
But if you think about it, if you can channel that, you know how important that skill is? Because sometimes I don't have that skill. I might have an interest show up today about learn piano. I never would look up, even I would be, in 10 years, I will be like, yeah, I wish I could learn that, but I won't look it up because that's not how my brain works, right? So you have a tremendous, beautiful thing to look into something and go for it.
And so do all of the other things that we call disabilities, all of the other disorders, whatever you want to call them. They all have a lot to offer the world as well because they look at things differently. I think of Temple Grandin. No one else thought about how to make a cow less stressed. She understood that.
Exactly.
Right? We need those different perspectives.
Yeah, that's what makes our world beautiful. So what was the hardest part for you to unlearn as you moved into more flow for yourself?
I think the hardest part to unlearn was the idea of a hustle culture. Thinking that success is going to come from working, pushing, learning more, doing more. Always, that was the hardest thing to let go. The hardest thing to let go was just to realize you have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your soul. You can't, success that comes from working, being a workaholic, working all the time is not healthy. And that was one of the hardest things to let go, to say to myself, I have to rest. My brain needs to rest. That's
permission.
That's the big shift. Yeah. To give myself permission to be healthy and not just keep driving forward.
How much of that do we learn as we were going through the school system? To rest, find peace, take care of your soul, take care of your mind.
Yeah. A little when I went to school.
Yeah, it's little.
I went to school a long time ago, and we used to have nap breaks and things like that. But more and more, it's becoming, kids are under an enormous amount of pressure in school. There's so much pressure.
But
too much.
More importantly, how would it have been for you to understand the importance of it? Not even if you do it, like just understanding that my brain do need, this is what requirement this soul and this body and this mind needs these is a great education, right? Even if we don't do it, but what about the education part of it?
But it's so funny the way we think about teaching things to students. So I know that in the grade that I taught, learning to make responsible choices was a learning outcome. And often that learning outcome would be done with worksheets. Choose the responsible choice from these 5 sections. Very seldom would teachers in that grade actually give 9-year-olds the opportunity to make a choice and make an irresponsible one and see what happens, right? And I think it's the same thing. We study the body, nutrition, and what the body needs to be healthy. But do we actually live that in the classroom, or is it taught as a very academic, something we learn in the brain, not something that we learn through experience and through our body?
Like if we learn about our hormones, this hormonal system, right? We would understand what is all of this noise and distraction is doing to our body, right? And what it would do to my nervous system, and what is it going to do to my emotional system. We would understand it, because understanding is everything, right? When a person understands, they actually have a deeper level of implementation of that. But if somebody just tells you this is the way it is, you're going to put your phone away. I don't get it. You're making me do something. But if you explain it to me, what's happening inside and the effect of it, I might listen more. I might lean in more because I might get curious more, right? So this is again going back to really giving the why behind what we say is important as well, which is also missing in our system currently. That's why our readiness OS is the missing link to the education and the personal development.
It is. There's so much focus on looking at data and meeting standards and finding the best curriculum and finding the best lesson. And sometimes the teachers that are sitting in those meetings, they're not at a state of readiness either. And then everyone, we put so much focus on that. And I think if we would take away all of that pressure to find the best lesson and find the best test and analyze the data and do all of that and take a step back and make sure that everybody in the class is at a state of readiness, I think we would see our scores go through the roof.
Yes, absolutely.
But we're constantly pushing for more, and that hurts the readiness. And it's like we're cutting off our nose to spite our face. Yeah, our focus is on the wrong thing. We shouldn't be the missing link. We should be there.
Yes.
This should be in every school.
We will be soon.
I hope so.
Yes, I believe so. But here's another question for you. If your younger self was to witness you now, right? If they were to see you now, what would they notice first?
They would notice that I've been pretty successful, but not in the place that I wanted to be. They'd be quite shocked at how easy it is for me to meet people, how easy it is for me to talk to people. And I think they would be also really surprised at the relationships that I have in my life, the really strong support relationships that I have in my life and that have been there for decades, and that stability and strength. And I think she would be also just really shocked that I can walk into a room full of people and just start talking to them. And it's not easy, but I can do it.
Yeah, but she'll be shocked.
She would be.
Yeah.
She'd be shocked to see me here today.
There you go. You are here. I am witnessing it. So amazing. And people are too. So if you were to give one simple action our listeners can take today to get closer to alignment and flow, the state of flow, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it's important to take some time during the day for self-awareness. So to space out a point in your day where you stop and think about how you're feeling emotionally, how you're feeling in your body. Just stop and take a body scan. Where do I feel tension? Where do I feel? And to turn that into time to relax your body, time to breathe, time to think about the things that have happened during the day, let go some things that have happened during the day. That simple mindful practice, it sounds so ridiculous, but just to take a moment to sit and deliberately let everything go and just breathe and feel how you are in your body. I think we spend a lot of time going through the day not even being aware of how stressed we are, how we feel, and taking that pause during the day to take a deep breath completely resets everything and changes the day. So working that in throughout the day is important, especially for me, especially when I'm walking into that room full of people, where I'm going into that situation that I know is going to be tough. Taking that moment to breathe and be aware and ground myself is everything, changes everything.
I agree. And we so take it for granted because it's so simple, right? Because we're giving something very simple right now. And some of you are watching probably are thinking that's just so simple. Can you not give me something profound here? But it is the simple thing that we forgot. Those simple things
that we're
missing right now is the simple thing to step back and breathe. But
yeah, and isn't it lovely that it's something that you can do with, you don't have to have any equipment, you don't have to go anywhere, you could be anywhere and do it. It's very simple. You have everything you need in your own body to do it.
Yeah, and even when you're part of toxic, even when you're part of toxic environment, you want to enter, exit, just cleanse yourself, like you said, take in that, sunshine of breath with the colors, right? The bright colors, and release all that toxic with that dark gray color. So changing even the breath into a color, like you started this, today's our conversation. That's amazing because then you're putting a visual to it, to that breathing, counting, and visual color is amazing. It is simple. You have it all the time. So try. Thank you for sharing that. So
the other one that works really well, sorry, I interrupted. The other one that works really well is getting out in nature.
Yes.
There are compounds in soil that do an amazing job of calming your body down.
Absolutely.
And
just go for a walk for sure. Yep. So how can people connect with our coach Toni here? I'm going to have all her information in the show note of this, so we're going to be able to connect you with her. Or she is on all social platforms, so LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, so you can connect with her there as well. So it is important that if you have a child who is, gifted, or you feel like they're gifted, or if they're showing some signs of giftedness, and you feel like there's something wrong, there's nothing wrong. They're just the way they are. They're born that way. So there's help, and there's a lot of people who have gone through it the hard way who can help you, such as Toni.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm so excited. Thank you for being here. So before you go, can you finish the sentence for me? Flow is
natural and easy.
Natural.
Once you're there.
I see it in you. It's peaceful. Like throughout this conversation felt so peaceful and ease, right? Yes.
It's that feeling that you get when you're drawing or working in a coloring book or out working in your garden, and before you know it, 5 hours have passed.
Yes.
And you've just been in a state of flow, just in the moment, doing what needs to be done, not thinking about anything else.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Fully focused.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kohila. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Blocks to Flow, where learning, living, and leading return to alignment. Keep reconnecting. Keep restoring. Keep rewiring your way back to rhythm. Discover more at holisticsuccesscodes.com and join the movement reshaping how we learn, live, and lead. Until next time, flow forward.